Maayong hapon, brothers, Bohol Region, BCBP Bohol Region. Atong ipadayon, atong replay, mo ni ang second day of replay, last Saturday, karon atong last day of replay for our Family Life Directorate, in cooperation with the BCBP East, no? Kini siya para sa Bohol Region, BCBP Bohol Region. Ang atong title nini, Understanding and Overcoming Marital Conflict. Kini siya mo kasagaran nga nahimong babag sa atong pagkasinabtanay nga magtiayon labi na kanang mga senior citizen ano. Ayaw gid ni pakyasa nga inyo kining manong karon og paminawon unsaon niyo pagresolba sa inyong mga conflict labi na sa mga bag-o pong magtiayon nga kinahanglan nga magkasinabot pa. Basta akong giawhag ang mga bagong magtiayon nga karon this is under adjustment period, kanang mga bago pang minyo o kang nasa middle years no sa ilang pag magtiayon na po ng mga conflict ana. So we have to understand and overcome marital conflict. Daghang kayong salamat. Ato karong pamatanawon kini atong replay.
Good afternoon, brothers and sisters. It is not realistic to think that you can get through marriage without some conflicts. Starts with two selfish people with different backgrounds and personalities, with bad habits and idealism, and great expectations, turned up with the heat of the daily trials of life. Brings tension in marriage which is unavoidable. It is not about your differences as spouses, but of how you deal with them. Managing marital conflicts results to harmonious spouse and family relations and prevents anxiety and depressions in the home. Thus, this webinar aims to beat marital conflict by helping spouses, number one, to increase understanding of themselves and the patterns of their interactions that have become detrimental to their relationship. Next, change ineffective or disruptive behavior into positive ones that will enhance marital relationship. Next, to identify possible causes of marital conflicts. Next, to increase the capacity to envision a better life together and to develop the capacity to work together as a team. Next, to learn marital conflict management techniques, to develop the motivation to change even if it becomes difficult. Next, engage in self-reflection rather than being judgmental. And lastly, to strengthen marital bonds. Brothers and sisters, good luck to these endeavors.
Thank you very much, Brother Erwin Lumutang, for that very defined statement of purpose for this afternoon's webinar. And then, once again, I would like to inform everyone that we can be viewed via Zoom and via FB Live through the respective FB page of your chapters. Okay, so this is the FB and the Zoom goes live simultaneously as of this moment. And then, at this juncture, my dear friends, I want to introduce to you, let me introduce to you rather, the very competent, the expert, a resource speaker for this afternoon's webinar. Okay, so she is the country's first registered and licensed psychologist. She has 45 years of progressively responsible professional experience, not only in teaching, but also in psychological practice, spanning across different areas thus was the first Filipino psychology professional to be certified by the Psychological Association of the Philippines in 4 areas of specialization as clinical psychology, counseling psychologist, assessment psychologist, and industrial organizational psychologist. In 2009, she was also the first Filipino to be awarded international certification as an addiction professional level 3 by the International Center for Credentialing and Education of Addiction Professionals, or ICCE, now known as the Global Center for Credentialing and Certification. Not surprisingly, in 2012, she was appointed as the first member of the pioneering Board of Psychology by President Benigno Aquino, and was also awarded the same year as the most outstanding professional counselor of the year by the Foundation of Outstanding Professional and of the Professional Regulation Commission. Outside her official designation as chairperson of the Professional Regulatory Board of Psychology, Dr. Cue is a distinguished global master trainer on Universal Treatment Curriculum UTC for substance use disorder under the International Narcotic and Law Enforcement Affairs of the U.S. Department of State and the Colombo Planned Drug Advisory Program. As Global Master Trainer of the UTC, both basic and advanced, she has been to many countries across the world to train trainers and practitioners in the Universal Treatment Curriculum for Substance Use Disorder. And he has sat as a member of the expert working group tasked to review the training manuals of curriculum program offered by the Colombo Planned Drug Advisory Program. She also underwent thorough training as a global master trainer of the Drug Demand Reduction Program of the United Nations Office of Drug and Crime, or the UNODC, in Vienna, and also went to Portugal to study SIACD, the world's blueprint for addiction prevention, dissuasion, treatment, harm reduction, and recovery management under the International Learning Partnership Program of the American Psychological Association. For the past 23 years, she also served as psychologist, psychotherapist at the Directors of Psychological Services at the New Day Recovery Center in Davao City, where she also sits as the member of the Board of Directors. In the RC is a mental health facility committed to help those suffering from substance abuse and other addictive behavior, psychiatric disorder, behavioral problems, and adjustment difficulties. Born and raised in the island province of Bohol, she finished her bachelor's degree of psychology from the University of San Carlos in the year 1974. She mastered the science degree in counseling from the De La Salle University in Manila in the year 1976, where she also completed her PhD in counseling psychology in the year 1992 with academic distinctions. She has been to other countries, notably the US, Canada, Scotland, United Kingdom, Switzerland, Morocco, Liberia, China, Singapore, Thailand, Malaysia, Bangladesh, and Mexico in pursuit of advanced knowledge in several of applied psychology, clinical and forensics, psychology, learning management, and organizational psychology, psychological assessment and evaluation, and on substance use disorder treatment. She underwent residency training at the Betty Ford Center for Addiction Treatment in Rancho Mirage, Palm Springs, USA, and at the Loma Linda Behavioral Medicine Center in the Redlands, and trained for further on forensic work and criminal profiling at the Cotton Police Department at the West End Sheriff Holding Facility, Colton, in the USA. Prior to her appointment to the Professional Regulatory Board of Psychology, she was a professor of psychology at the MESU IIT for 32 years and was an HR organization development consultant to big industrial establishment and multinational companies for more than 20 years. He also worked briefly as country HR manager for Cargill Philippines Incorporated, as HR director of the Refractories Corporation of the Philippines, as HR supervisor and training director of Iligan Cement Corporation, and as guidance counselor and faculty of the psychology and faculty of psychology at Xavier University and Lourdes College in the early part of her career. She also has published several international research and referred journals on concerns related to trauma and traumatic stress treatment and recovery management. Friends, ladies and gentlemen, our highly competent resource speaker for this afternoon's webinar. Let us all welcome Dr. Miriam P.
Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, I cannot maing hapon. Okay, so let me just share my slide. Okay. Okay. So maayong hapon sa tanan and a blessed Sunday, everyone. Thank you for the very generous introduction, bro. But as I mentioned earlier, in the eyes of the Lord, we are all equal. He doesn't know us by our professions. He doesn't know us by our titles. He knows us intimately by our names. So you can call me Miriam, and I am with you this afternoon at your service. So the family life ministry of BCBP Tagbilaran East requested me to share whatever little I know about marital conflicts, the management of marital conflicts. So I tried to come up with this basic title on on understanding and overcoming marital conflicts. So let me share with you this afternoon, okay, an integrated, I would say, some integrated learnings about marriage and marital conflicts. First, from the School of Psychology, where I come from. Second, from my more than 40 years of experience with clients in distress, including marital couples, couples in marriage, and of course, from my own lived experience in marriage for 44 years. I am 65 years old, and my husband, Eugene, is actually 71. And ours is not a perfect marriage. I'd like to repeat, ours is not a perfect marriage. We have our own fair share of conflicts. But I'd like to share with you the very fact that these conflicts actually can be worked out to strengthen the marital bond. So for this particular webinar, I have only prepared 3 specific goals since we have only an hour or so. One is on awareness and literacy. Okay, this will actually subsume what has already been explained earlier as the goals of this particular webinar, as mentioned earlier. So awareness on what marital conflict is all about, how it comes about, and how it can be resolved and managed. Okay, awareness of the couple relationship within the family system. We need this literacy for us to help our own selves, our own marriage, okay, and strengthen the marital bond or the marital relationship. Thus, the next goal of self-efficacy, that we may be able to help ourselves. And of course, Okay, we are in this ministry, so believing in the cause of marriage, okay, I hope that we will also go into advocacy and support. Advocate and promote for healthy marriages or marriage in the Lord, and of course, support and strengthen marriages along the way. So I personally believe that self-efficacy can only be achieved if we have appropriate understanding and literacy of what marriage and marital conflicts are all about, and that we need self-efficacy if we are also to go about advocacy and support. No one can serve from an empty tank. We all know that. No one can serve from an empty vessel. So we need to strengthen our own marriages if we are to help other marriages for the Lord. So with these basic goals, I have presented this outline. So first, we will discuss the marital relationship, because marital conflicts, okay, happen within the marital relationship. And to further appreciate marital relationships, we need to discuss this within the context of the family system and in the context of what's happening today. Now, and then we will zero in on marital conflicts. Okay, the nature and roots of marital conflict, and then marital conflict and its context. And then hopefully move on towards strategies in resolving and managing marital conflicts. So this will include conflict resolution, transactional analysis and breakdowns in communication, nurturing one's emotional intelligence to strengthen self-efficacy and within the marital bond. And of course, we will hopefully end up with specialized care, that is on counseling and psychotherapy. Now, since we only have 1 hour and a half for presentation, let me point out that this discussion would will try our very best to look in to consider the details. But I also hope that you will consider this presentation as an overview of the subject matter. So if there is any particular concern you would like us to really focus on later, maybe we can schedule another session for that. Okay, so that is what we will be taking up this afternoon. So first, I'd like to point out that marriage, okay, has to be understood within the family system. We all belong to families, okay? Your spouse came from her own family of origin. The husband was also once a child in a particular family. So we all belong to families, and we decided to put up our own family. So when we get married, they say, okay, try to live on your own, okay, separately on your own, try to be independent. But like it or not, we bring with us, the couple, the husband and the wife, bring into the marriage their own families, because these are the family, this is the family they grew up with. So in a typical family is a member, okay, who represents a developmental phase in life. Okay, you can be a baby within this family. We have an adolescent, we have an adult, we have aging parents or grandparents, okay? And in each family, okay, every member within that developmental cycle has his own distinct needs, okay? I want this properly understood right from the very start, so that we wouldn't wonder why conflicts actually emerge. Okay, so we all belong to families. At the end of the day, we are within a family. Okay, so the family is an emotional unit. Okay, and no family is perfect, my own included. We argue, we fight, we even stop talking to each other, we even treat each other with a cold shoulder treatment. But at the end of the day, family is still family. And this family is the basic unit of society. So we need to build strong families for a strong and healthy society. So to understand each member, to understand the couples in a marital relationship, okay, the husband and the wife, we need to understand the family, because this is very important in understanding the life of the couple. So the family is a system in which every member, the child, the husband, the wife, or whoever is in that family, has a role to play. And aside from these roles, we have rules to respect. And the rules of one family system may vary, may be different from another family system. That's why we cannot impose our own rules in other families. And this is the kind of adjustment we make in marriage, because our spouse comes from a totally different family system with its own rules to respect. Now, families are systems of interconnected and interdependent individuals. So we are actually interwoven with each other. Okay? So we are interwoven. Okay, there is this connection, and we cannot isolate each member from another member because of that web of relationships within the family system. Now, within each family is the individual. Okay, so the person, okay, belongs to a nuclear family with father, mother, brothers, and sisters. And then we have the extended family. Like we have grandparents, we have relatives, we even have families, as in the BCBP community. That's our family. And this is now the extended family. And we reach out, okay, to the world. So the child, the developing individual, is actually shaped, okay, by his own family values and experiences, his experiences in school because of the social environment, the peer group, the religious, the church to which he belongs. All this can impact on our growth and development. And the family is a dynamic, open system subject to change, continuity, and cyclical influences because of the world outside. We cannot live in isolation. We have to relate with other people. And so the developing child, okay, is exposed to the world. And this child belongs to a family. He can be the husband, this person, this individual, could be the husband, the wife, or the child. Now, within this family system, if you move on to the right side of the illustration, okay, that's the family system. And within this family system are three subsystems which are interwoven. First, we have the relationship between the husband and the wife. This is the couple subsystem. Okay. Now, and this couple subsystem, okay, is part of the parental subsystem. So we have the relationship between the husband and the wife, and then the husband and the wife now become parents. And so the parental subsystem, the parents in relationship to their children. And then we also have the sibling subsystem, the sibling subsystem, which is the relationship between and among the children. Now, why are we including this in our introductory discussion? first we need to understand that whatever happens to the couple subsystem impacts on the parental subsystem and also in the sibling subsystem, because we're talking here about an interwoven network of relationship. So within the family system, as already mentioned, we have the marital subsystem or the couple subsystem, that is the interaction between the husband and the wife. The interaction among the parents and their children, that is the parental subsystem, and the interaction among the children within the family. Now, added to the nuclear family is the influence of grandparents, relatives, and many other cousins. And we have to understand that this is particularly true in Philippine society, because as a people, we are communal. So meaning we have a collective unconscious. So we are very communal. So what every member within the family can feel pressures from other family members outside the immediate family. Now, within this family, every person has to balance the needs at the individual level, my person as a member of the family system, and also the needs of my family. So we have to balance the needs between my identity, our identity as a couple, and our identity as individuals, either as husband or as a wife, or our identity as parents, okay? And within the individual level, we have the need to belong, okay? We want to belong. At the same time, we have to balance the need for independence, the need for autonomy, the need for distinctiveness. So in my own marriage, I am my own person. My husband is his own person, but somehow I need to belong to him. I need to belong to the family. But at the same time, I have my own distinct needs as an individual. And this has to be balanced in a healthy marriage. Now, within the family system, we also have the affective pole, the need to strengthen emotions and relationships within the family system. And then we also have what we call as the ethical pole, the rules within the family. So we have family, the need for family cohesiveness and the need for family enmeshment. So we have to balance all this within the family system. Now, within each family, okay, so we have already mentioned that the family responds to inputs, okay, from the external world, and the family itself will bring out its own message, its own outputs into the world. Okay, now within each family, okay, our structures is the structure. When we talk about family structure, actually we refer to the invisible set of rules. These are not written, but somehow within each family, we understand the rules. And healthy families know what these rules are. So these rules govern the transactions, how we behave towards each other, and how the other members, how we behave towards our children, towards each other as husband and wife, and how the whole family relates with the world. So we have the family subsystems, which we already mentioned, and within each subsystem, the roles, the tasks we need to play. The tasks we need to play as parents, and the tasks we need to play towards one another as a couple. Okay, and then we also have what we call as transactions. Okay, so we interact with one another. And even And in this interaction, we also set boundaries. So boundaries are actually the defining line, which may be unwritten, which may be blurred, may be very clear. That's why sometimes we cannot help but understand but say, oops, man lang ko dire. No, because of the set boundaries. Okay. Now, family systems, okay, so the family is one system. So that when we intervene in families, usahay, wala na kay mahimo sa couple relationship, we intervene into the family system as one total system. Case in point, we handled one family, okay? The mother was always at work. She kept herself very busy at work. She would come home late. The husband was equally busy. So the child was under, practically with the caregiver, the yaya, okay, who also tried her best to be loved by the child. So she continues to be a member of the family. Okay. Now what happened was the child was more attached to the yaya than to the parents. And then the husband, this was the source of conflict because the husband insisted that the mother did not have any attention for the child. Walang attention or the other children. So maayo pa kuno ang yaya. Palangga pa sa anak, but the mother had no real interaction with the child. Then I found out why in my interaction with the mother also had her own fears of relating with the child because of mental disorder. Okay, she was actually suffering from a general anxiety disorder, and she was so afraid this would affect the children. Okay, so what happened was, so it was the conflict went on and on. So the decision was this kind of conflict cannot be resolved between the couple or by the husband and the wife. So what happened was, we had to do a systems intervention. Take the yaya out of the family. So by taking the yaya out of the family, the parents were forced to spend more time with the children. Okay, so that is what we mean by systems intervention. Okay, but that's why we have to understand that within the family is the concept of wholeness. Yun na siya pwede matunga-tunga, no? Wholeness and also subsystems. Many couples, okay, wala na gyud pag-asa, there's no more relationship to save, and somehow the relationship is already very unhealthy. But they say, okay, we need to hang on for the sake of the children. How sure are you the children will also develop into healthy adults in that kind of relationship? Because the children also get affected by the couple relationship. Where there is tension in the couple relationship, this is definitely shared by the children. And you will only realize that the tension is shared by the children and also result to conflicts within the sibling subsystem. So, okay, so this we need to understand. Now, the family structure, family interaction, family functions or roles interact with each other. And this is affected by the family life cycle. Unsa nay edad sa pamilya? Okay, is it a new family or is it already 20 years old or 40 years old or just starting? So the family life cycle impacts on structure, interactions, and functions. And this is open to the impact of changes within the family and in the outside world. So the stress we also carry with us because of realities in the outside world. So now let's look at the pandemic. So that's the family system. Now, in my practice as a psychotherapist, I would say family issues have been on the rise. There has been no week where I did not have to intervene in a couple relationship. In fact, very lately, it has been more difficult than it ever was with many of my clients. Why? Because of social disruptions, okay, brought about by the pandemic, like loss of the business, job loss, financial insecurity, the physical health crisis, which called for social distancing. Actually, the term social distancing is a misnomer because what we're referring to here is actually physical distancing, because we can still do distance socializing through social media, through the internet. But the physical health crisis somehow imposed on us this kind of physical distancing and confinement. So there has been social disruption brought about by the pandemic. Now, children also needed to adjust, thus the emotional problems. Their behavioral functioning, they've been so used to going out with their friends, used to playing out in the field outside, and now they're now confined to the home, inside the home. And education is now online. So issues related to learning and in economic progress, academic progress are now have emerged. The relationships have also taken a toll because of this, that all these disruptions, the child also needs to adjust. So the social disruption is not just affecting adults within the family system, but also the children. In fact, many of the children are actually witnesses of abuse, okay, among fighting couples, among fighting parents, the husband and the wife. They're either witnesses to the abuse, or they can be the displacement. They can suffer from the abuse themselves as anger is redirected towards the helpless children. So social disruption has affected child adjustment, and this is also affecting the child giver's well-being. Okay, and when we say child giver, we mean the mother, okay, as the primary caregiver, or the yaya, but basically, you know, the parents. And this is giving us psychological distress. Both child problems and social disruption bring about psychological distress to many parents, to many husbands and wives. Thus, the parenting stress and the mental health symptoms that go with psychological distress and parenting stress. Now, while we need to strengthen communication within the family, okay, not everyone, okay, has a healthy pattern of communicating with each other. Okay, we need to organize rules and roles for family members to find satisfaction within the family system. So what is important is family resilience. But how do we strengthen resilience within families? Of course, it starts with individual resilience, and of course, resilience within the couple relationship. Okay, time and again, we parents, okay, have been so concerned as to what we can leave our children when we die. So when one time I asked couples to come up with a collage on as to what they would like to leave behind to their children. So they mentioned about education, they mentioned about sound finances, you know, possessions, ownership of an estate, business, and all that. But actually, okay, if you really look at things more, I mean, in the context of mental health, effective parents leave their children only two things: roots, a healthy home where values are very clear, rules are well established, so the child develops a sense of stability, a home where the child can go home to when the going gets rough, and of course, wings, education, skills, okay, to fly in the direction they want to take. Beyond that, let us give our children also the opportunity to find themselves under the sun. So we have the whole family, the parent subsystem, the parent-child, the sibling subsystem, the marital subsystem. And this well-being of the family definitely is affected by the family's vulnerabilities. This may include financial hardships. This may include mental health conditions. This may include relational dynamics, which may not be that healthy. Now, add to the impact of the pandemic is, of course, the advent of the fourth industrial revolution. And whether we like it or not, technology is changing family dynamics. It has changed the way we find meaning in life. It has changed the way we find meaning in work, in family relationships, and of course, in communities. The world is changing. That's why we talk about the next normal, okay, the new normal, because life is no longer the same. Changes happening now are actually causing major disruptions, not only in technology, but also in education, in business, in on a grand economic scale, society, and even our lifestyles. So in the old era, things were more or less predictable. Now with the fusion of biological systems, digital systems, and physical subsystems, form the cyberspace, okay, of the fourth industrial revolution. Okay, new interactions are emerging in the new era. So you look at that typical family, just within sitting in the sofa, but each one is involved in what he is doing with his own internet. So in his own cell phone. And the cell phone is actually changing the way we live. So technology, and this has created tensions within the family. And definitely all these tensions bring about conflicts in the relationship. Okay, so what exactly is conflict? Sorry for the misspelling. Conflict happens when two motives are not in accord. Okay, so conflict is normal even within the same person. Sa ato-ato lang, no? Sa usa nato, we have our own fair share of conflicts, right? We call as intrapersonal conflicts. Like, what are these conflicts? Okay, when two motives are not in accord, say we have what we call as approach conflict. We want to do two things at the same time, but we can only do one. So we have to decide which is the priority. Okay, or we can experience approach avoidance conflict. Say we want to approach our spouse, at the same time we're also afraid. That's approach avoidance. Or it could be avoidance conflict, when we are made to choose between the devil and the deep blue sea. So that is still within the person. How much more when we talk about two individuals? Busa gani gitawag tag individuals because we never look at the same things the same way all the time. And because of varying perceptions, varying thoughts, conflict between individuals is inevitable. So conflict in marriage occurs when the needs and desires of spouses sa magtiayon, sa bana ug sa asawa, diverge and are incompatible. Okay? The husband may want to go to Tubigon. The wife may want to stay home. So conflict can arise. So it is inevitable and it will occur at any point, some degree in the marital relationship. So walay kami niyon nga wala gyud mo agi og conflict. Conflict is part of our existence. And so for as long as we live, especially in relation with other people, there will always be conflict. Now, so it is not the existence of conflict, no, nga mo'y makadaot sa kaminyoon or sa marital satisfaction or sa atong stability as a couple, but how we manage the conflict when it occurs. So I repeat, it is not the existence of a conflict that is detrimental to the marriage relationship. It is how we manage our conflicts when it occurs. So it is not our problems that will destroy the marriage, but it is how we handle or manage this problem. So Eugene and I have been married for 44 years, okay? So conflicts are inevitable. We had our fair share of conflicts, but we came to agree that where there is a conflict, this conflict is not between him or me, but it is between us as a couple, a particular issue or problem, okay? I repeat, it's not between you or your spouse. In a healthy marriage, the conflict is not between spouses, but the conflict is between the spouse, magkauyon ta, magkasinabot ta, and a particular issue which we have resolved. Now, what are the characteristics of conflict? First, okay, a conflict is of brief duration. It's like a guest in your house. A conflict does not stay there forever, okay? But it will stay depending on how you welcome the conflict. So, ano siya, bisita lang siya sa atong panimuyo. So, it's brief duration, temporary, and intermittent in character. So, do not be managed or controlled by your conflict. Instead, learn to manage your conflicts because it's only temporary. It's not all there is about marriage. But the sad thing is, once the conflict has begun, it is very difficult to stop. So, mapod na ang iyang problema. But of course, we can do something about that. So, when we are in conflict, grabe ta ka-emotional. Because conflict is loaded with passion, impulsiveness of human emotions, and violent passions. They say, control your emotions, control your passions, but we cannot. We cannot bottle our feelings inside because emotions actually come from the Latin term movere, which means to move. It is our emotions that push us to action. So how can we control our emotions? Instead, we manage our emotions, and this will be discussed later. So conflict is cumulative over time. Does not go away unless it is addressed. Magpatong-patong na siya if we do not attend to it. And each act of aggression, okay, an aggression will promote more aggressive rebuttal. So magtuyok-tuyok ang talagot. Now this conflict may be latent, okay, latent, dili klaro, okay, or it can be overt na makita jud sa atong mga behaviors, no? Okay. Now, what are the common conflicts in marriage? Okay, mauna ni na naisgutan ganina, unmet expectations. Lahi-lahi ta og expect our own as spouses, lahi ang expectations sa matag usa. That's why communication is very important, so we would know what each other's expectations are. Okay, so perceived inequality in the division of labor. We complain, sobra naman po ni ako na lang tanan. Okay, and sometimes our children would say, grabe man po, kanang kaluisad na ko, no, nga kanang alkansi ko. So often enough, I say, when the children were growing up, and they complain, alkansi good taon na ko. Okay, so I say, unsa may mampuhunan nga alkansi ka man. So anyway, just to put humor into a situation. Renting differences, mingon ang bana, ingon ani man ko pagpadako, gi ani man ko sa akong ginikanan. The wife would say, well, I belonging to another family. Lahi man sa mua. Tanawa gud na imong mga igsoon, so dito magsugod ang away. Time and competing activities. Okay, we have limited time for each other, even when we are on lockdown, when we could have spent more time on each other. Lahi-lahi pod ang atong aktibidades. Competing activities. Sometimes we even compete on the TV set. From one radio program, TV program to another, palit na lang, duha kung ka-afford, no, para way lalis, we say. Inability to manage our finances, especially in these difficult times when money matters significantly. Dili man sa ingon na makikita ka, no? But then the point is, the basic necessities of life, like food, shelter, are actually linked to a cash economy. We need cash to survive. That's why we need to manage our finances. When we don't have enough, even if there's more than enough, we do not know how to discipline ourselves. So this could become a problem. Issues on physical intimacy. Okay, so somehow, okay, husband or the wife may need some intimacy, some sexual encounter at a particular point. Pero we say, kamanhid basag, dili kasabot na ning kamot na ganito, wa lang gihapon. Okay, so, and of course, issues about infidelity, okay, relationships, unfaithfulness in marriage. Unfortunately, sa ato manggong kinabuhi, husbands equate fidelity with loyalty. Okay. So when we talk about loyalty, okay, like loyalty sa pagkaon or loyalty with certain friends, we try. Okay? And then mobalik raman gihapon ta kung unsay pinaka-importante gyud. That is what fidelity means to the husband. But to the wife, no, it's all or nothing. It's me or, okay, it's either me or another person or them. So we value faithfulness. Okay. Now, so that's another issue that comes out. And then going back to physical intimacy, I'm sure this has been discussed in our BCBR, our marriage retreat, BCMR, BCBR, but MR. In our marriage retreat, when sex is discussed in marriage. So we discuss physical intimacies. The point is that the sexual triggers for the men are different from the women. Men generally are sexually aroused through the sense of sight and the sense of smell. That's why they get aroused by sex films, and then the smell, sweet fragrance of a woman. But the triggers for a woman are different. It's through the sense of hearing and the sense of touch. So because the woman is triggered by the sense of hearing, she also gets the impression the man is also aroused through hearing. So at the peak of orgasm, the wife may say, well, I love you. And the husband may push her, stop saying that, because of course, that's not the trigger. So physical intimacy, how we show our intimacies, how we are triggered, would also be a source of conflict in marriage. Of course, the stresses of day-to-day life, okay, impact on the marital relationship. And so too, worse if there is a case of mental illness on any of the spouses, or a mental disorder on any of the spouses. That's why in many cases, some cases in the marital relationship, counseling may not be enough. Psychotherapy is often needed, okay, so address psychopathologies within the marital relationship. So this is the vicious cycle of conflict. Conflict brings about anger and frustration, and because of our anger and frustration, we yell at one another. And amidst the yelling, we feel we are not being heard. And so one shuts down, one withdraws, one doesn't say anything. At the end of the day, there's no resolution. So, and this can go on, this can be the create cycle downwards towards depression and burnout. Now, what are the most common triggers, okay, in the marital relationship? Okay, when one of the spouses would say, I felt excluded, I felt powerless, siya na lang, my wife is controlling this house, I feel powerless. I felt unheard, the wife would say. I felt scolded. I felt judged, blamed, disrespected. I feel there's no affection, actually. I feel so lonely. I feel uncared for. I felt ignored. I feel like I couldn't be honest in this relationship. I feel, the husband may say, I feel like I'm the bad guy. I felt forgotten. I felt unsafe. I felt unloved. I felt that it was all so unfair. So I feel disconnected. I feel trapped. Okay, now these are expression of feelings. But actually, I will discuss this later. When you focus on feelings, do our feelings feel really excluded? These are not. When you say, I felt excluded, of course you feel bad, but you don't feel excluded. You think you are excluded. You think you are powerless. You think you are unheard of. You think you have been scolded, judged, or blamed. So it's not your feelings. It is our thoughts which give rise to our feelings. So instead of controlling your emotions, focus into the thoughts that are responsible for your emotions. Let's manage and discipline the thoughts behind our emotions. So these are the most common triggers in any relationship. Now, what happens when spouses actually are in conflict with each other? Okay, so there is a negative reciprocity of thinking, feeling, and behavior. Everything becomes negative. Okay, that's why intervention is very important. Now, and then we have what we call as the demand withdraw pattern. One party seeks, pursues reassurance and closeness. Okay, Yep, apoy mga strings attached to it, yet because of expectation. So I pursue reassurance and closeness. And so nag-expect ko, I would invest on giving you reassurance, but I expect reassurance in return. Unfortunately, the other party would withdraw and avoid contact, makes excuses, he hides his feelings, okay, and pushes the seeker away. And so we feel abandoned, okay? The seeker feels needful, loving, caring, longing, hurt, deprived, insecure, unloved. He fears rejection and abandonment. The other naman feels stifled, obligated. He would say, I feel choked, okay, and guilty for rejecting, but not comfortable as well. So he's afraid of losing himself in the relationship. So many mga problema, this demand withdrawal pattern, negative reciprocity. That's why Stephen Covey would say in his book, Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey pointed out that love is the fruit of the verb. So don't focus on being loved because it's only the fruit of loving. Okay? Don't focus on being loved. You're only bound to be frustrated. Instead, focus on becoming a loving person because no one can reject or abandon a loving person. So focus on the verb, on being loving rather than being loved. Okay. Now, knowing what conflict is, let's look into what conflict is not. Okay. So we say that healthy conflicts actually, a conflict is not a breakdown in communication, but a process that is ongoing, that has to be managed. So it entails communication about our disagreements. So this is a healthy conflict, and as such, it is not abnormal. However, okay, while it entails communication about disagreements, it is not automatically resolved by communication. Okay, so what are the effects of marital conflicts? Why do we have this webinar? Okay, so we have this webinar precisely because of what marital conflicts to do to us, to our marriage, our health, and to our children. So the impact of conflict on the couple's mental health is extremely alarming and concerning, especially when one of the couples feels victimized in their relationship. So that's why in marriage counseling, okay, we try to make people feel that they are actually and claim that they are survivors, not victims of the relationship. Survivors, but of course, resilience is not only about surviving, but also of growing and learning, of thriving and flourishing from our conflicts. Victimization, on the other hand, can shatter the most basic of human assumptions. Okay, these assumptions actually allow us to live our lives normally. And what are these assumptions? That we are safe from harm, that the world is meaningful and just, and that we are all good, decent people, decent couples, okay? And that the home is safe from harm. But when we feel victimized by the relationship, by ongoing conflict within the home, okay, that's when depressive symptoms can start. This conflict, that tension can be converted into eating disorders, especially among us women, and also alcoholism among men. Okay, this can result in poorer health with specific illnesses. There is research evidence pointing out that cancer is actually associated with unresolved tension, anger, and anxiety. That cardiac disease is associated with depression, and that, of course, chronic pain with with chronic stress and tension. And then conflict can also, if unresolved through time, especially kung patong-patong na, can actually affect parenting. Thus, poor parenting among couples who are in perpetual conflict. Poor adjustment among the children. So what can you expect of poor parenting? Poor adjustment of the children. And increased parent-child conflict, or conflict between the siblings. That is why we need to address marital conflict, because it can be at the root of the unhealthy functioning in families. We need healthy families, build a healthy community and a healthy society and a healthy world. Okay, so conflicts need to be addressed. To further appreciate conflicts, let's consider the 5 types of married couples, okay, presented by Gottman. We have the conflict avoidant couple, the volatile couple, the validating couple, the hostile involved couple, and the hostile detached couple. So in these earlier writings, Gottman also mentioned about 4 types of married couples, but lately hostile couples have been further redefined into hostile involved and hostile detached. Now, who are the conflict avoidant couples? So these couples minimize persuasion attempts and instead emphasize their common ground. They avoid conflict. They avoid expressing what they need from each other. Maulagi, moabot lang ta o magkalalis lang ta. And so they avoid conflict and congratulate the relationship for being generally happy. Conflict-free, kay gitaboy man ang mga panaglalis. So in avoiding conflict, they think they are actually avoiding confrontation. They think they are also avoiding conflict at the same time. Okay, so the couple thinks it is better to agree than to disagree. Kay kapoy na. So they focus on their common values and interests, minimize their differences, and continue to believe na mga problema masulbad ra pod og ila. So there is a balance between independence and interdependence. By the way, in growth to maturity, okay, we talk about the development of interdependent reality from the development of the you. When a baby is born as children, we are dependent on other people for support. So it's always you. My world revolves around you because I wouldn't exist without you. That's what the baby's relationship with the mother is. But as we grow older and wiser, we realize our independence. That is me, the I. Okay, so we journey from the you, from our thoughts, from living our world from the eyes of other people, to the I become more assertive, become more me, more autonomous as a human being. That is very important if we are to meet as a couple. You are you and I am I. So that is what interdependent reality is all about. The we. Because if the autonomy of each couple is not established, we're not talking about the we. We're talking here about dependency or codependency. So anyway, conflict avoidant couples may be avoiding confrontation. There is a balance between interdependence and independence, and they have clear boundaries, okay, to separate their interests. So their interactions are more positive than negative. They manage to keep on with the marriage. And then we have the volatile couples. They're so passionate that they are so volatile. They are intensely emotional. They love to debate. They love to argue to the top of their voices. They are not disrespectful or insulting. Kulang mga tingog, and then volatile, they're spark. Okay, they're very passionate. There's no insult nor disrespect. Okay, so negative emotions may be expressed like anger or insecurity, but there is no contempt or an attempt to put the other person down. So because they are highly volatile, conflict erupts passionately and are fought on a grand scale. So you may have heard of couples who are eternally fighting, still unhappy, and do not separate even if they are highly volatile. They are open with each other's feelings. Okay, they argue a great deal about their roles. But they emphasize connectivity, and honesty in their communication. So they argue, but only to resolve their differences. And then fights can also be sprinkled with humor, with fondness. And so they have a great time making up. Okay, so in fact, their debates may be characterized by so much laughter, shared amusement, and humor. They begin persuasion immediately after the fight and stick to it throughout their discussion. So in more ways, there are more positives than negative in the interaction, 5-1. And then we have the validating couple. So avoidant, volatile, and validating couples. And these couples put emphasis on supporting and understanding the partner's point of view, okay, to the point of even sacrificing their own needs for the partner to feel good. And so these couples fight politely. Interaction is characterized by ease, by calmness, okay? They confront their differences, but only on a few topics. They're collaborative in their approach. They work together. They discuss things to arrive at a compromise. So they validate each other when they fight. Calm and good, pero I can understand also where I'm coming from. Pasensya na. So they become highly competitive on some issues, especially among professionals. Okay, they can be very competitive, and this can turn into some kind of a power struggle, but they usually come down and compromise, and they are only mildly emotionally expressive during a conflict. And of course, the most difficult, okay, are the hostile couples. So the hostile involved regulate their negativity, while hostile detached couples do not. So highly hostile couples have high levels of defensiveness and are emotionally involved or detached. Their conflicts are laced by insult. They insult each other, and there is no warmth, no support or understanding. Okay, so their relationship is marked by criticism, defensiveness, lots of contempt, and stonewalling. This, in the context of marriage therapy, are the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. So this processes actually define whether a marriage will last. Criticism, defensiveness, contempt, and stonewalling. Okay, and this is found in hostile couples. Unhealthy communication patterns exist. No one listens. Each couple, each party insists on one's point of view. And he can enforce that point of view and can be very accusing. Oh my God, you always do this. You never do this. And then statements are characterized by whining and complaining. Okay, now we also have the hostile detached couples. They're like two armies, kamurag sige away, engaged in a mutually frustrating and lonely standoff. Murag naghulak na lang og spark with no clear victor, only stalemates. Okay, and they snipe at each other, they hit on each other during conflict. And then they just go away, okay? Although the air is full of emotional detachment and resignation, like gun smokes, okay? To give you an example, I handled this couple, both professionals, married for 20 years, okay? Hostile, detached, okay? So they would, wala nang pake. They never cared for each other anymore. So I would say, may paman siguro magbulag ni sila because the energy each one of them used to be, which we could have used to be productive, actually was used to destroy each other. So both got sick. Anyway, very, very sick. Anyway, what happened was, at one point, I was trying to intervene. I told the husband, how come you have ended up this way? How was it like before you got married? So can you go back to the time when there was a romance and all that? And you know what the husband said? Well, I never really loved her. Okay. So I said, how come you married her if you didn't love her? And then he said, well, I'm an honorable person. She got pregnant, so I had to marry her. So sad. So this is an example of a hostile, detached couple. Doesn't care anymore for the other. And so what happens? Children, one of the children grew up to have borderline personality disorder. Because she played the role of a parent as a child. She was only 6 years old, but tried to keep her parents together and so tried to do the parenting role, hoping that she could save the relationship. Okay, now there are key numbers which we should consider. Okay, so the four horsemen of the apocalypse, the end. Okay, these are the horsemen: criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. These are called four horsemen in the apocalypse of a marriage because they predict separation. Okay, and the couples normally realize this about 5 to 6 years after the wedding. Okay, now the average couple usually wait 6 years before seeking help for marital troubles. Seek help for marital counseling. Basit di ay madalara kung kami lang. But like it or not, of all the marriages that end, 1/2 of those marriages ended in the first 7 years. Okay, that's why sometimes we refer to the 7 years, a year each of marriage. Okay, so and 69% of conflicts is about unresolved perpetual problems, gabalik-balik na mga problema. 16% of this are perpetual issues that are involved in gridlocked couple relationship. For those of us who drive, we know what a gridlock is. There's in chess we call stalemate. Okay, walay paingnan na stuck. You get stuck in the traffic. You cannot move because this is what happens in the relationship. Okay, and 80% of the time, women bring up issues in heterosexual relationships. Okay, so they bring about issues about, you know, the infidelity and unfaithfulness of their partners. 85% of stonewallers, they turn to be stone hardened, okay, are actually about this heterosexual relationships are among the men. Okay. Now, how do we resolve and manage marital conflicts? Okay. How do we resolve conflict? Okay. So from accusing each other to a compromise agreement. Okay. How do we do this? Okay. So let's look into the four horsemen in a relationship. Defensiveness, which includes playing the victim, playing victim, blaming the other. Only yesterday, I was listening to a couple. The wife was suffering from an anxiety disorder and blamed the husband's behavior, blamed the husband for causing her anxiety. And the husband was saying, iya, raman ang hinihimo nga problema, waman taon na siya nakuunsa. Okay, no one takes responsibility. Okay, so that's what happens when couples are defensive. Okay, now what happens when people are contemptuous of each other? Okay, you roll out. Okay, like feeling and acting superior over the other. Okay, and so you call the other as mediocre, stupid. Okay, that's contempt. Okay, criticism. We know what criticism is all about. We actually attack the character of our partner. We keep saying, ikaw gyud, you always do this. You never listen. You never, you know. So that's criticism. Ambot ano sa ka pa magbag-o. Pag kay responsable, perme na lang. That's criticism. Okay? Using you statements instead of I. So this is very important in the giving of feedback in the marriage. When we say, I feel bad, okay, I feel lonely, I feel like I need to be cuddled, okay, instead of saying you are stone-hearted, you are so tough. So instead of expressing your need, you project, okay, your anger towards the other person and criticize the other person for not meeting your need. And then stonewalling. Okay, the person shuts down, dili na maminaw, hardened na. Okay? Okay, and he turns the partner out or even pushes the partner away. So how do you save the relationship? So instead of criticism, try to be gentle. Instead of defensiveness, you're so offensive. That's why I'm defensive. Take responsibility for your own behavior. So instead of, attacking your partner's character, talk about your own feelings and needs. Okay? And if you feel like stonewalling, okay, when you feel like shutting down, practice self-soothing activities. So this is what happens when we are confronted with the four horsemen. Okay, and how to stop them. These are the antidotes for criticism. Okay, instead of verbally attacking the other party, okay, a gentle start-up would be appreciated. Instead of attacking the other person's sense of self or abusing or insulting the other person, build a culture of appreciation, affirmation within the marriage. Okay, remember that this is a partnership. So positive qualities result to positive actions, which are important. Now, defensiveness, instead of victimizing yourself to ward off perceived attacks, take responsibility. Accept your partner's perspective and offer an apology when you are in the wrong. And then instead of withdrawing to avoid conflicts in the case of stonewalling, take a break and spend the time doing something soothing and that's soothing and distracting. Okay. Now, so this is the conflict resolution model. Okay. So in an ordinary conflict, just name the issue, jointly identify the drivers of the conflict. Unsa may itong problema? Nganon sa may hinungdan ani nga problema? Identify common interest. Unsa may gusto nimo? What is your goal? Ako maupod ni akong gusto. So together, let's brainstorm possibilities and make sure that the solution addresses the interest of every person until we reach an agreement on the solution on how to act on the basis of the conflict. So that is from the perspective of rational emotive treatment. Okay, so the mind. Now we have to understand that in conflict resolution, emotions are also involved. So we have to recognize that fear is a factor on both sides of the conflicting couple. That's why respect is very important. Coming up with creative solutions to the problem is important. Recognizing injustice on both sides, not just on okay. What did Christ say? Father, forgive them, for they know not what they're doing. So that's in what was in his mind. That was why forgiveness was possible. Problema, we think that we have been insulted. We think that we have been disrespected. But we can think differently and say, Father, forgive my husband because he does not know what he is saying. He does not understand what he's saying. Or forgive my wife because he does not understand. He doesn't know the meaning of what she's doing. Okay, so there has to be no real anger or belligerence, stubbornness. Okay, so we need to understand values. We don't have to prove who is wrong because of what for? We're not here to put each other down, but to do something about the conflict. Don't discuss about religion or ideology. Maujud mo inyong mga kaliwat, inyong mga kauban din ha. So, okay, and they should not be part of the discussion. So this is how. Now, what are some of the strategies? Okay, there's already conflict and you have to work it out. Be direct. Talk about how you feel without blaming your partner. Never say never or always. Don't object automatically. Paminaw sa, what are the complaints? Take a different perspective. Know when it's time to time out. Okay, murag, lisod na ni. So time out sa. Okay. Now, of course, there are many, we can also learn from the Bible. Conflict resolution verses include, okay, like, no, my beloved brothers, let every person be quick to hear. So try to develop a compassionate ear instead of seeking to be understood. Seek to understand. Listen to where the other is coming from. Be slow to speaking and slow to anger. So we're not bereft of guidelines from the Bible. A soft answer turns away a wrath. So even when the person is really angry, okay, a soft answer can calm him down. A harsh word, however, stirs up anger, like contempt. Don't look out only for your own interest, but also take interest in your partner, in the other person. Make allowances for each other's faults and learn to forgive. Now, anyone who offends you, remember, the Lord forgave you. So we also need to forgive others. Now, how do we bridge the gap in conflict resolution? Okay. So if you would look at this diagram, okay, on the x-axis, you have the importance of achieving your goal from low to high. And then on the horizontal axis is the importance you give to the relationship. So if importance is low, whether to achieving the goal or to valuing the relationship, avoidance, we tend to avoid, okay? So we suppress the conflict, okay? Now, if we give priority attention to achieving our goal, my goal at the expense of anything else, I can be very complete. I don't mind about the relationship for as long as I feel I won. Okay. Now, on the other hand, okay, importance to your goal might be very low, but you put a high value to the relationship. So we become accommodating. We often give up our needs for the sake of the other. But a healthy relationship which gives equal value to both individual goal and the importance of a relationship would mean compromise and collaboration. Okay, so these are some situations that would tell us when collaboration is appropriate and when cooperation is not. Okay, so there are situations where we have to be cooperative, accommodating, forcing, like when the issue is complex, you don't have to force the issue. But if the issue is very trivial, ginagmay lang, you can be forceful about it. So avoidance, if the issue is trivial, it's all fine. But if the issue is important to you, avoidance is unhealthy. So compromise is needed when the goals of parties are mutually exclusive, lahi-lahi. But when one power party is more powerful than the other, compromise may not work. So these are conflict management styles. I'll just give you an overview because of limited time. It's 3:15, I'm checking. So how do we manage conflict? Control negative feelings. So I would say manage negative feelings and impulses. Share your true feelings to your partner. Identify your concerns. Listen attentively. Listen with compassion to the other person and respond sensitively. Understand the point of view of other people, your husband or your children or your wife. Be open-minded. So together you work out a solution and then try to negotiate a win-win solution. So this would require conflict resolution skills, creativity skills, perceptual skills, negotiation skills, stress recognition skills, process management skills, communication skills, counseling skills, and analyzing. Okay, I wish we have time for that discussion. But there is, they say, you put your marriage conflict to rest. Okay, rest means review. Okay, what exactly is the problem? Evaluate the options related to the problem. Find a solution to the problem and track your progress. So this is one way of putting marital conflict to rest. Okay, now what happens when there is a breakdown in the relationship? Di na gyud madala. It's a relationship breakdown, not just an ordinary conflict. So what happens? Okay, we have to understand that negative interactions take a toll on our relationships. And this now will call for assessment of communication patterns, communication breakdown, okay, which could be present in your conversations. And to appreciate this, we need to understand transactional analysis. So I wish we have more time for transactional analysis. This can be one issue for a particular session. But just to give you a background, transactional analysis claims that we can better understand ourselves by analyzing our transactions with the people close to us. A transaction is a conversation or interaction between two people. So transactions are psychological in nature, okay? And they relate to how we behave and how other people behave towards us and how we respond to their behavior. So for instance, we say, my attitude affects the behavior of my husband. Okay, now my attitude affects my behavior. My behavior affects the attitude of my husband. His attitude affects his behavior, and his behavior also affects my attitude. So it's very important to understand this transaction if I am to save the relationship. So when we talk about transactional analysis, we talk about the ego states within a person. The parent ego state, which we actually get the voices we hear from our own parents. The adult ego state, which can also be within us, and also the child ego state. Now, all these are part of us. We have the parent ego state, the adult ego state, and then the child ego state. Now, the parent ego state judges, criticizes, lectures, gives advice, and talks down on the other person. But of course, at the same time, the parent ego state takes care of other people. The adult ego state is objective and rational. It asks for information and treats people as equals. Okay, now the child ego state is submissive, complying, talks up, is playful and impulsive, emotional, and can throw a tantrum. Okay, so within each and every one of us is this parent ego state. You should, you must take care of you. So, and this can impact on our behavior. Then we have the child ego state also within us. We say, wow, this is mine. I wish, I need help. Okay, but at the same time, we also have the adult ego state, which is confident, and factual. So just to illustrate my point, okay, we have damaging parent ego states, which can be criticizing, inconsistent, and interfering. And then we have the damaged child ego state, which can be submissive and compliant, oppositional or rebellious, and of course, reckless or impulsive. That's the child in us. So we have the parent ego state in us and the child ego state in us and the adult as well. So the parent ego state can be nurturing, controlling, can be affectionate or autocratic, considerate or bossy, or forgiving or demanding, generous or dominant, gentle or fault-finding. All this are behaviors, attitudes within the parent in us. And the child ego state can either be free or adopted. The adopted child or the free child. The free child is adventurous. Adopted child is anxious. One is affectionate, the other is apathetic. One is artistic, the other is arguing, energetic, arrogant, enthusiastic, awkward, excitable, complaining. This is the child within us. And as adults, we are alert to what is going on. We are capable, we are clear-headed, efficient, fair-minded, logical, methodical, and all that. Now, what happens? Putting all this together, you would realize we have within each person is the controlling parent and the nurturing parent. Okay, within each person is the free child and the adopted child. And now this, whether we take the role of controlling parent, this will be manifested in our actions, behaviors, and outcomes. Okay, so these are the ego states and how it can influence the person. So I TA, transactional analysis, be a very good session. Okay, so we need to understand transactions. What we say, that is our activated ego state. Where am I coming from? Is it the parent or child in me that's talking now? Okay, my response, okay, what I receive from you, from your own ego state, and what I expect, and also the response that I actually receive. This could be complementary. Kung complementary, walay gubot. But if it is crossed, then that's when the problems arise. So we have the controlling parent, and then the adult ego state, and then we have the free child. Okay, so that's how life is. Now, an example of a complementary transaction is when you talk to an adult and your spouse talks to you as an adult. Like you may say, I noticed that you went over our budget on eating this week. Can we talk about this? It's the adult in you talking to the other person. The other person may say, wow, you're right. I got a little carried away by this past month. Okay, we'll try to be more mindful next month. That's an adult to adult transaction. So it's okay. Then, okay, the transaction can be crossed. One party comes from his parent ego state, okay, and is very controlling on the spouse who is considered the child. And then the spouse responds as an adult. Or the child may be in you, may be talking to the parent in your spouse, and your spouse is responding as an adult. So conflicts arise because you're coming from different perspectives. Okay. Now, what is the relevance of transactional analysis to marital relationships, to the solution of marital conflicts? So TA is a great tool to help us have better, more constructive conversations with the people close to us. Okay, so it can help us become more aware of what the other person needs, your spouse needs. Does your partner need you to be a parent, nurture him or her, or an adult to give advice? Or, okay, is your relationship pattern characterized by recklessness in that of the child? Now, another way to handle marital problems and relationships would be developing and nurturing our emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence means developing the ability to understand our emotions, what our emotions are telling us at any given moment in time. So we need to understand our emotions, identify our emotions, and see how other people are affected by our emotions. At the same time, emotional intelligence involves our perception of other people, okay? Understanding how they truly feel. Because if we have an accurate perception of their emotions, it can help us strengthen our relationships. So understanding emotions is not enough. We also need to perceive the emotions of our partners, of our children, of other people, and use these emotions to motivate us to pursue our goals. And of course, emotional regulation, meaning we should learn how to manage our emotions. So emotional intelligence, which people are now saying are far more important than the IQ or intellectual quotient. The EQ is more important, means understanding our emotions, using our emotions appropriately, managing our emotions, okay, and perceiving the emotions of other people more accurately. And this calls for awareness of who we are and awareness of the world around us. So this implies recognition of who I am, my own, who am I? So we need to understand ourselves. Okay, this is very important to recognize our moods and emotions, our drives, and its effect on my spouse. And then of course, my ability to understand the makeup of my spouse, okay, and my skill in treating him according to his emotional reaction is equally important. So self-awareness and social awareness. And then regulation. How can I control and redirect my own disruptive impulses? It's part of self-management. Remember, we can never manage ourselves unless we know who we are. So self-awareness comes before self-management. And a person who has efficiency in managing himself normally has the skills to manage relationships and to build meaningful networks. Okay, so this is very important. Now, earlier we said that there are triggers to conflict, like I feel disrespected, I feel excluded, I feel betrayed, I feel powerless. So again, I mentioned earlier that these are not really feelings. These are the thoughts which power our emotions, which arouse our emotions. That's why we say the human mind has the remarkable ability to induce distress and to overcome it by choice, according to Albert Ellis. So if you want to manage your emotions, manage the thoughts responsible for those emotions. So your thoughts, your interpretations of what's happening around you are responsible for your feelings. Your feelings are created by your thoughts, not the actual events. So you cannot say, you made me angry. I made myself angry by believing you should be like this, you should be like that. Okay, so the problem is if we are not aware of our thoughts, our emotions can validate our thoughts, especially if these thoughts are negative. That's why we need to know the thoughts behind our feelings. Now, our feelings are responsible for our actions. Our actions are shaped by our thoughts, but it is our feelings that gives energy to our action. And our action, in turn, affects the world. So this is the role of cognition. Now, if everything looks dark, if the couple keeps fighting not only about a singular issue, but are finding more things to argue about, then marriage counseling might help figure out why there is so much turmoil, or if no one or both spouses want to even continue with the relationship. So reaching out to connect is actually the responsibility of both partners. That's not just one partner. So why is counseling important? Please realize that the details of what you are fighting for are actually negligible compared to your innermost experience begging to be heard. So the root of the marital conflict could be some struggles within each partner in the conflicting relationship. Marriage counseling helps couples of all types recognize and resolve conflicts, improve their relationship. And through marriage counseling, you can make thoughtful decisions about either rebuilding and strengthening your relationship or going your separate ways. Why do people seek marriage counseling? First, you may have grown apart. Pag nagkalagyo na mo. One partner may have been unfaithful, okay, na may problema on your finances, nag-clash mo, there could be too many arguments. Love is no longer existent. There is a big change in your life, okay? And then there are other members within the extended family who are now interfering in your relationship. These are some of the reasons why we seek counseling. And the specific issues may include communication problems, infidelity, financial issues, sexual difficulties, conflict of child rearing, okay, or the blended family. These are just some of the specific issues. Now, there are actually several types of intervention. Okay, when we reach out to a friend, okay, who needs help, this may involve informal counseling or marriage-friendly counseling. So you are responding to the needs of a friend. Okay, this is different from professional counseling, which is more structured. But in professional counseling, the professional counselor also believes that this couple is the expert of their own lives. I never interfere. I am only there to guide through the healing process because this is their life, not mine. What works for one person may not work for another person. And they know better, more than I know them. So I'm only there to listen, guide, to help them work out a solution to the problem. Now, counseling usually is given is provided when people have normal problems of adjustment. But when the marriage relationship is already dysfunctional, or when one of the parties has a mental health issue, a deep-seated personality issue, then counseling is not enough. We have to go into psychotherapy. Sometimes in the couple relationship, okay, as the psychotherapist, there are times when I have to break them as individuals, break them apart, break them as individuals so one can put the pieces together. Okay, so they may not talk about anger, but you can feel the anger, so you make them angry. That's why psychotherapy is deep-seated. Some young psychologists may not feel competent about psychotherapy because psychotherapy requires, as a therapist, you are confident so that you don't care if the couple doesn't like you. What is important is you help them mend, put back the bits and pieces, the broken fragments of their life together. So this is deep-seated. And then we have faith-based counseling or communal counseling, as we do within the BCBP. We help each other. Okay, we visit couples. And then we have tailored programs like the BCMR. Other groups have the marriage enrichment programs. So these are tailored programs to strengthen marital relationship. What is important is to strengthen a healthy relationship based on respect. Where there is respect, there is accountability, the feeling of safety, there is honesty in communication, there is support, cooperation, and trust. Now, you have in the marriage relationship, the couples will be guided, distinguish, see the difference between marital weaknesses and marital strengths. Okay, so they are made to understand. So marital strengthening the relationship is, of course, very important. And then, of course, lastly is the need to establish the resilient marriage model. So the marriage is affected by conflicting societal values and cultural values. What is important is commitment, intimacy, and respect of couples towards each other. So a resilient marriage is characterized by communication. So it is communicative, adaptive, trusting, and mature. So that solid circle is meant to establish, to strengthen faith, means faith and a strong sense of self. So conclusion, we say that we have to make space for the things that matter. Relationships, the family, being part of a community, celebrating, giving thanks, being part of a tradition and its wisdom, faith and its blessings. And the more you invest in your marriage, the more valuable the marriage becomes. So anyone can actually hide. He can hide his problems. But facing up to these problems, facing up to these issues, and working through them is what makes us strong. So don't hide your struggles. Make it your goal to create a marriage that feels like it is the safest place on earth. So thank you for this, for giving me this opportunity to share. So whatever it is you might need to know more, maybe can be discussed in a separate session.